I'm Pastor George Borkard, and this is another Higher Things video short. Order in the Church, Augustana 14. That's the subject of today's Higher Things video short. Our churches teach that no one should publicly teach in the church or administer the sacraments without a rightly ordained, rightly ordered call. So John Eck, during the time of the Reformation, accused the Lutherans of just willy-nilly allowing anyone to preach, to teach, and to administer the sacraments in church. He said, the Lutherans are doing stuff that no one has ever done before. Laity, administering the sacraments. This article confesses otherwise. No one preaches, teaches, or administers the sacraments in our midst who is not rite vocatus, rightly called. Rightly, R-I-T-E-L-Y, called. Or the German kind of spells that out better, ordentlicher Beruf, ordentlicher, ordainedly called. And so this sort of tells us how things are ordered in the church. The pastors are there to deliver Jesus. They're delivery guys. They preach, they teach, and they deliver the sacrament. They administer the sacraments. They're not greater. They don't have some indelible character that makes them better stuff than someone else. They're not special in and of themselves. They're just guys. But their call, their vocation, is to preach, to teach, and to administer, to give out the sacraments. That's what they're given to do. Well, what happens if in case of an emergency? Well, an emergency is just that. An emergency isn't, I really would like to baptize my daughter. So I'm just going to sort of tell pastor that I'm going to be doing the baptism, and he can just sort of, it's going to be all right. That doesn't happen in the church. All right. It just doesn't. It's not what's given to. Emergency is the ship is sinking and there's no pastor around. And the unbeliever next to you says, you know what? I believe that Jesus died and rose again for me. Would you baptize me? And so one person baptizes, the Christian baptizes the unbeliever, and then the Christian looks at the new Christian and says, you know what? I have some sins to confess before we go under. Would you forgive me? And then the new Christian absolves his brother. That's St. Augustine. An emergency is an emergency. It's not, I just want to do the thing, or I can do the thing. This is not about who can do things. This is about who is given to do things in church. And no one preaches, teaches, or administers the sacraments in our midst who is not rightly, ordainedly called. Well, does that mean, what does this mean about acts performed by laity? What if the laity oversaw the sacrament? Well, doubt comes in, because that's not what's been given for us to do in the church. What if the laity preaches? Well, if everybody preaches, then we have 1 Corinthians. There's some order in the church. The Lord has established some order, and that is that those who he calls to preach open their mouths, and those who he hasn't called to preach are on the receiving end of him opening the mouth of his preachers. Is this about power? No. This is about gift-giving delivery. And where there's gifts, where there's the Lord giving his gifts, there's some order involved. Not everybody's taking. If everyone is a minister, then no one is a minister. It doesn't really mean anything to be a minister, a servant of the word. Well, what about the priesthood of all believers? And this is why Eck had his complaint. That everyone is a priest is that they do the things that priests do. Not everyone is a priest. I'm sorry. The baptized, the believers are priests. They sing forth the praises of the one who brought them out of darkness into his wonderful light in their particular vocations, in the place where they've been placed. Not everyone has to be a pastor. Not everyone has to be an evangelist. Not everyone has to be a bishop. To each is given certain particular gifts, so that the school teacher does lives out her vocation in the school. A teacher lives out her vocation or his vocation teaching. A preacher does his vocation preaching. A construction worker lives out his vocation constructing. When it comes time for church, those who are servants of the word are the ones who are doing the serving, and we who are on the receiving end of his gifts are on the receivers. Servant of the word. That sort of levels this business of power, doesn't it? Because it's not, I, a called and ordained, most important person in the room, a big cheese, a person whose ring you should be kissing. No, it's as a called and ordained servant of the word, as your slave. Well, not your slave, Jesus' slave. But as the slave of Jesus, I come here to wash your feet in the forgiveness of sins. I'm amongst you to put to announce his words to you and to feed you his body and his blood. And who's more important then? The person receiving the gift or the person delivering the gift? The person receiving the gift. You only really care about the UPS guy or the FedEx guy when your Christmas present isn't on time. Otherwise, you care about the person who gave the gift. And the gift is salvation in Jesus. The delivery is the ones the Lord has ordainedly called to be doing the delivery of his gifts. And you are on the receiving end of that gift giving. And we, in the Advent season, get out of the way. We block all the things which get in the way of his giving us his gifts. St. Augustine said, the Lord gives only into empty hands, the empty hands of faith. That's what Advent is all about, getting us out of the way, and so we can be on the receiving end of Jesus being such a God in the arms of the Virgin, on the cross, and on the altar. I'm Pastor George Borchardt, and this has been another Higher Things video short.